Welcome to 50/50 Books, the book review podcast where the books are split in two, and figuring out just what is going on is a toss-up. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jonathan. This episode we are finishing up She's Too Pretty to Burn by Wendy Heard. Taylor, this second half of the book was something else. I felt quite different than the first half. How are you feeling having reached the end?
You know, this was highly anticipated by me personally, and sadly, it did not live up to the hype inside my head. It's just, I made this point in the first part that the first half felt like there was a lot that was happening, but also it didn't feel like anything had happened.
Yeah, it felt a bit slow burn. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's only like worsened in the second half. Like some crazy shit happens. To your point, it feels like a crazy different book. But also, like, substance-wise, depth-wise, it doesn't feel like anything happened or was accomplished by the end of this book.
Yeah, I'm going to say, given that you often have a sort of character-focused lens, that's probably a big reason why you're feeling this way, because I definitely, yeah, I felt like there was a lot of action happening. This is the thriller, right? Or last episode, I was like, I don't really feel the thriller yet, but this is where that comes out. I think as a result, when you're so focused on all this action, the book doesn't always have an opportunity, and I say the book generally meaning books in this genre, don't always have an opportunity to get into the character changes that are happening or should be happening or you might want to happen. Does that line up with what you're feeling?
Yeah. That's a fair assessment. Yeah, because it felt like there were certain things that were meant to happen plot-wise, and so the characters just kind of had to change to meet those expectations, right? Like Veronica being careful about texting and like leaving traces, but then choosing to text Mick. It's like, okay, but why did she do that? It's like, oh, because that's the time she chooses not to be paranoid because that's what needs to happen for the plot, right? Like that's like really nitpicky, but it feels like a lot of that happens, right? So
I mean, Mick goes into the desert without the phone, right? To like go address the film, and then Nico shows up and you're like, why is she without her phone? Especially because they had just kind of had this important, I felt at the time, weighty conversation about what Nico's still out there, right? And like, what if he catches us at school? What if he catches us out when we're doing things? And like, meanwhile, Mick is going swimming alone at the beach, and she's going alone out to the desert where the events of the crime happened.
Yeah, it's just like really,
it doesn't line up.
Yeah, silly things like that that are like supposed to be like tense, right? To your point, like Nico showing up is supposed to bring that tension, but it's like, would characters actually do this? I don't really know.
Yeah, and I complain in other books sometimes about believability, and I did think that kind of irk came up for me, particularly with Mick's actions, but I think it's true in general that like they're all, once you get to this action focused part, they are all playing a function to get to the end in a way, right? So we lose a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
I think a thing that stuck out to me about this book, I mentioned last episode how there's no good men in this book, but I actually think the only good person in this book might be a man.
I know.
And that's really unfortunate. Like I find myself feeling like all of the main characters are I mean, they're all teenagers, right? So it makes sense that they're flawed, but they are all flawed and kind of in frustrating ways. And then even like, the Veronica's mom, Claudia, like says some irksome things, right? At least she kind of apologizes, but like there's everyone in this book kind of rubs me the wrong way except Detective Salcedo. And then like that rubs me the wrong way because, well, yes, it's now we're at the only good character as a man. So that's kind of weird in a, mostly a book about women. And secondly, he's the cop character.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why am I so like feeling so in support of the cops by the end of this book, where I'm like, wow, like they didn't tell the cops things that I think they should have told the cops, and like Mick is never going to face justice for the crime she engaged in. I'm like, whoa, like why by the end of this book am I like people should be cooperating with the cops regularly? And so then I was like, is this book secretly propaganda? Like where the only good character is a cop, and like by the end I feel pro him.
I know, yeah, it's so strange. I was like, this man must secretly be evil because they were trying to make him so likable, and he was for some odd reason like flirting with Claudia throughout this book. I was like, okay. Yeah. But yeah, Claudia in particular pissed me the fuck off. Her speech about Mick constantly being a victim, and so that must
Yes,
say
yeah.
something about Mick's character. And I'm like, bitch, shut the fuck up. Like, you don't know this girl.
Exactly,
You
yeah.
don't know anything. You're in a privileged position where you're like rich and get to be an artist. And I just, oh my God, it was infuriating to me in particular.
Yeah, she like totally misses the point of it all, right? Because like part of me understood like where she's coming from. Of like, I think what she's talking about is really more like a toxic personality than like a victim personality, right? Like I think she's saying there's people who like take advantage of when things like this happen to excuse themselves from behavior, right? Which in a way is kind of what this book does, but not necessarily what Mick does, right? Like I think Mick really is victimized constantly in this book for real. So she's just yeah, she's speaking out of her ass.
It's so funny to me because she's also a victim of your daughter,
No,
right? Like, this all
literally.
started because Veronica took a picture without her consent. Like, make no mistake, that is the start of this entire mess.
That's such a great point, honestly. Yeah, and do they even ever they never talk about that, right? Though I guess maybe Veronica doesn't give the proper context there, but like there's never this mother-daughter opportunity to like, oh man, and this probably would have been so good. Like a mother-daughter conversation about the mistakes that Veronica has made. Like in like in hurting Mick multiple times. She never like talks to her mom and is like, "Hey mom, like I really fucked up. Like what do I do?"
No, I don't think Claudia has any context for any of that. I think she thinks her daughter is completely perfect.
Perfect, for sure.
Yeah, which is insane. I don't know how we started at the beginning of the book with Veronica being like the evil, and then we just like completely swapped their two characters for some reason.
Yeah, that pisses me off about this book too, honestly. Like, and I will say, like, I don't, I think I'm still, I haven't figured out exactly what my rating for this book is going to be yet or anything, because like, there's some things I feel conflicted about with this book, and like, yeah, I'll save a lot of it for the review. But like, just there are things that get me about this book, but it doesn't. I don't think any one thing about this book is like, wow, this is such a deal breaker for me.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know if deal breaker would be the word. The only the only other thing that really annoyed me is like at the end when Claudia and Mick's therapist kept pushing her basically and being like, you might want to,
Oh,
reconcile with your mom one
yeah,
day. And I also was like, brother, we cannot be doing this right now. Like, I I don't understand why we set it up at the beginning of the book and then just refused to admit that Mick was being abused by her mother. Like,
yeah, yeah.
why? What is happening here?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Frankly, there should be legal repercussion happening to Mick's mob, not like we should reconcile. And also, at this point, the burden of reconciliation is on Mick's mom.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
not hers at all. Like, they should be helping her understand that she has no responsibility in this and that she was a kid.
Yeah, so that was just so frustrating to me.
Yeah,
Ugh.
no, very fair.
But yeah, general vibes aside, we can get into it. I did touch upon it, but the sort of switch that happens between Mick and Veronica. Not that I necessarily think Veronica was set up to be the villain of the book, but like in the second half, she definitely becomes the hero. And it feels like everything she's done wrong before is sort of brushed aside or excused.
100%. Like, I was like, oh, like Veronica is the protagonist now, right? Like, we're kind of following her as she solves problems and she like starts telling people things that she wasn't telling them before, right? In the way of the detective and her mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think we're supposed to like feel on her side as a result and maybe even excuse her. There's even a scene, maybe this is a little bit before that really kicks in, between Veronica and Mick, where there's like some calling out happening. I think it's like at the beginning of the gala. Like there's some calling out happening of the behaviors that each of them has exhibited. And I remember feeling a type of way about this because I feel like Mick actually apologized, whereas Veronica just explained. And then like they kind of just forgive each other immediately. Like there's very little discussion needed for them to be like, let's just like put it all behind us. Like we're fine. Like and like for Mix, it was like about the arson and Veronica being like, oh, good people do bad things, like that type of stuff. They just push everything into their past
Mm-hmm.
and start fresh without really addressing anything. And so maybe we're supposed to do that too and be like, we're willing to empathize with Veronica now and she's like in charge and she's making different decisions, so she's good. But I just don't get there.
Yeah, I feel like I don't get there because it's that issue of they're saying these things, but I don't feel like they're enacting any of that, right? Like
Yeah.
Veronica in particular, she's like on the cusp of understanding. She's like, "Oh, I did this without consent. I knew Mick wasn't comfortable with this, but I did it anyway, or I pushed so that she would agree with me." And it's like, okay, we're figuring it out. We're figuring it out. But then she, like, again, refuses to sort of read between the lines with Mick, especially when they're in the locker room together. And Veronica knows Mick is keeping a secret. Like, she knows Nico and Mick have been spending time together. And, like, she refuses to sort of empathize and be patient with Mick. Which
right, because she kind of storms off there.
Yeah, she does. She storms off, and that's kind of what makes everything worse, right? In regards to the Mick and Nico situation. So it's like, it's not like a consent issue necessarily. It's a different issue, but I think it's similar, right? Like, Mick obviously, first of all, you've known each other for a couple days, right? So you already don't have a lot of background together, but if you're very serious about your relationship, like, sometimes you have to be patient with the person you're with, right? They're not going to be able to vocalize something, especially somebody like Mick who's been alone for so long, right? Like, it's difficult for her to speak about these things, and Veronica just refuses to, first of all, understand the lifestyle that Mick has, which is so different from hers, and then also to, like, give her the time to be able to explain it, or, like, give her the benefit of the doubt, basically.
Yeah, that was a frustrating scene because Veronica kind of comes to the rescue, like, in a time where Mick is falling apart, right? She's effectively been, temporarily removed from the swim team.
Crazy.
And it ends with Veronica storming out of the room, right? It's like she came supposedly to help her out and then made it about herself. And, like, for all the crazy things that Nico does and says, him calling her out for being a narcissist is not totally wrong. Like, I wish it came from someone else, someone more trustworthy, but, like, it's valid. Like, she does kind of, it's funny we bring up that Claudia speech. I don't think Veronica plays victim, but almost I do feel that speech was about her, like, making things about herself. And then, like, when her not getting what she wants, or, like, needing to get what she needs, I guess, in her perspective, excuses everything else. We talked a little bit about this last episode too. And so, like, this, it just becomes frustrating to watch her interact and, like, not really empathize, not really understand what someone else might be going through, because it's always in the lens and context of what she needs for her own future and, like, to feel good about herself. So I think the bigger thing that's connected to too is, like, she is the privileged character, right? And you can see it, like, the interactions with Claudia and everything, like, she's kind of been babied and been given the conditions to become this way, frankly, right? And she doesn't really ever get to a point of acknowledging that that's informing her behavior,
right?
Another thing that really gets me about Veronica, and you're getting at this a little bit, like, when she does do these, I don't know, unsavory things, and she gets to that point of acknowledgement of, like, oh, like, I've done all this bad stuff, like, I didn't ask for consent, yada yada. I feel like the response kind of ends up being, but, like, it got me here, right? Like, she's like, oh, I have to do the gala though. Like, there's not really, like, any remorse, action, or intention to change. And I personally, I don't think she does. Like, I have this question here, like, does she actually redeem herself or grow? I think the answer is no.
Do I think redeeming? No, for sure not. I don't. Yeah. Change, it's hard to say. Veronica is so art focused in the beginning, it feels like that falls away a little bit because of the thriller aspects that come in. It's hard for me to say if she's as hyper focused on art now.
Yeah, like, to her credit, at the end you get this scene of oh, like, Mick, you don't have to, like, be in front of the camera for me, like, we can take a break. We don't have to do that. And, like, you don't need to feel like you owe us, which that I have some other things to say about that, but you don't feel like, you shouldn't feel like you need to owe us with this in particular, right? Like, we don't have to do photos. And that's kind of a growth moment, right? Because she hasn't even been asking that amount. And so I can give her credit for that. It just still misses the point a little bit, though, because I think there's been kind of check-in moments before, and what Veronica misses is how Mick doesn't really feel like there's an option to say no. Like, at least instinctively, like, she would have to make an active effort to get there. And so, I guess in that scene, you get a little opportunity to see that Mick kind of understands the capability to say no, and she's saying yes anyway. So it ends up kind of saying more about Mick's growth than Veronica's, right? Because I think Veronica is still so willing to be like, oh, well, she said yes, so it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also, yeah, it definitely is more about Mick because it's also a difficult situation because Mick is kind of financially dependent on Veronica and her family, right? Like she's staying with them, right? So
Yeah, there's a power dynamic.
there's, yeah, a power dynamic. We can only assume that if Veronica asked for photos, Mick would say no and Veronica would allow it without any kind of repercussion, right? Like,
Yeah, the matter of fact is we haven't seen a no happen, right? So, and Veronica's probably going to feel a type of way about it, frankly, because she hasn't gotten a no.
right. And we don't really know what sort of the outside pressures are like in regards to her applying to art school and the fact that the first like showing she had was with pictures of Mick for postmod. Like, is any of that influence going to change how she feels if Mick says no, right? Like, does she still feel like her future as an artist is tied to taking photographs of Mick because it's had such success already, right? Like, there's a lot of things that just obviously aren't talked about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the assumption, because the ending is such like a happy, idealistic type of ending, we can assume Veronica has changed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's really no time to figure it out. There's like a bigger evil to deal with, basically.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, because I think what could have still been just as quick of a scene that would have set for me that Veronica has at least updated her way of thinking of these things was instead of saying like, hey, like, are you sure you want to still do this? It would have been giving Mick the break without asking in this way. And I don't want to, I know there's some maybe hesitation here about making a decision for someone else, right? But she could have given her the pass and said, hey, Mick, like, I think it would be good for us if the relationship we have for the next, month or two isn't one where I'm also taking photos of you for things that affect my success, right? Where it's like, I'm going to focus on like finding something else because also I probably can't spend my whole career just photographing one person, I'm going to like find some other things to do in the meantime. I have this like good set of photos that have all these accolades. They make a good portfolio base. I'm going to go find some other things. Like that could have been a good like growth moment to say like I'm just going to give her a break. And then, Mick is exploring taking photos, right? Selfies, she has an Instagram. Then it's not that no photos ever happened, but they're for them, right? And that kind of speaks to Mick's personal interest in how she's gotten into photos is like these photos are for us and these represent moments that I have. I think that's what that could have been. This is a long way of saying all that, but that could have been communicated really quickly of like, hey, we're going to take a break from me taking photos for work and we'll just take photos for us. That would have been a good growth moment.
Yeah. This ties into something I definitely want to talk about a lot, but it almost feels like Mick is obviously the muse of two artists in this book, but I feel like, I don't want to say there's a misinterpretation of what a muse is, but everything you're just describing, like, I think it would have been really nice to see Veronica treat Mick as a muse without capturing her photo, right? Because it's not just you don't just take pictures of your muse, like you're inspired by them,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
So I think there's a way for photography to still matter for them, right? Which is what you mentioned, but then also it would have been nice to see that inspiration aspect come in rather than just Mick's appearance seeming to matter in regards to Veronica's sort of development in both her person and like in her art, right? Like
it's funny because it's like what Mick experiences, right? Like Mick is inspired by Veronica in the way that she does become interested in wanting to take photos in like not just of herself but of her environment and things. She's starting to think about things differently. In that way, it happens, just not to Veronica.
Yeah.
One thing I just mentioned in that conversation that I want to loop back to, which is the paying back situation. I think it's so nuts that it was like, oh, like you don't have to worry about paying us back this way. I shouldn't tell people how to spend their money. But I feel like if we're going out of our way to raise this kid for a year, maybe we should think about taking full financial responsibility instead of saying that this 17-year-old who is a high school senior, has no family, is like in debt to us. Like I think they should just cover it, frankly. Like it seems like they have the means to do so. I could be wrong, but it seems like they have the means to cover it. I don't think there should be this relationship where Mick is going to be perpetually owing them until she makes enough money for that to not be the case anymore, which probably be some time. Like, I don't know. This is like student loan debt, but worse.
Yeah. It's just like a weird situation because we're letting Mick stay there and do this, but then also surely there's also some like not complete trust in her character because we have the history with Nico, right? Like Nico and Mick are very similar. I wonder, this is not mentioned in the book, but I wonder if like that you will eventually owe us, pay it back is like a you should want to pay us back as a sign of your good character so that we don't think you're like Nico. Even if they're doing it unintentionally, I wonder if that's like a possible thought they're having.
I think that's possible. That also made me think that like Claudia is very much a mom of all. And so I could see it being like she's momming Mick, right? Being like what someone should do in a situation like this is offer to pay back, and this is kind of, I don't know, teaching moment, if you will.
Yeah.
I think I could see the character thing. I think that even if they see the connection between Nico and Mick, that they understand how different they are, or they wouldn't let her in the house at all, frankly. Right? Like to be living there with their, I say they, it's really Claudia, right? Like living there with her daughter and herself, right? Like I just don't even think that would even be an option.
Yeah, to be fair, they both know Mick set the fire, right? So it's not like they're...
That's true.
There are no secrets at this point anymore. Like, an arsonist is living in that house.
It's such a good point. They've agreed. Yeah. All right.
I mean, yeah, we can try and give it substance. I think really there is none. I think they just needed Mick to have somewhere to go for some kind of happy ending. Her mom was not a possibility. And so they just kind of had to brush over the Nico stuff and the history and be like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah. No, I think so. And I think there's part of this too where it's like, yeah, like the happy ending includes these two high school lovers living in rooms down the hall from each other, where it's like, all right, we've gotten a little flowery here,
Yeah.
I think it's maybe for the target audience, right? It's for the fun of it at the end.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable book in a lot of ways.
Exactly. And I think it doesn't mind that about itself, right, with that ending.
Yeah. But should we talk more about Mick, I suppose? I feel like Veronica's kind of wrapped up.
Yeah, I feel like we've given Veronica her hard time. So.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to give Mick a bit of a hard time too, despite some of the things I've said about her being kind of the victim character of the book. I do think that stands true, right? Like, it's just like everyone in this book is using her for one thing or another. Veronica and Nico, right? Her mom, like, it's just she can't catch a break. But on the other hand, like, she does some pretty bad things. Like she does, we see the arson in the first half, but like this half she's like sneakily helping Nico with the gala install, if you will, and then she also engages in the murder of these fishermen on the boat.
Yeah, does she know they're going to die though?
I'm at the point where I think it doesn't matter. So like the last episode, I mentioned how Veronica gets involved with stuff but doesn't ask questions, right? And she's like maybe a bit trained to not ask questions, but she doesn't. And so it escalates into the arson. Like, I don't think she's not an accomplice to that arson just because she didn't exactly know it was going to happen, because what she did do is she basically kept Nico as a very close friend of her life, knowing that he was a bit loose cannon, and decided to keep going along with him as things escalated. And before that arson even happened, right, I'm like thinking about, there's what I thought were 4, but it's apparently 5 steps to this installation series. I'm thinking, man, like if this is where we are already, what are the rest of the steps? Like that doesn't process for Veronica, and she has the information for that to be the case. So extending that to Mick, like Mick is now on her 4th assist. I don't remember. she at this point is choosing to not ask those questions. And so she has the responsibility to either ask or responsibility for the actions that she takes and what they lead to, even if she didn't know the specifics.
It is interesting, though, to speak of them both, though, because Veronica is in the privileged position where she can say no, right? Like she cannot involve herself.
Mm-hmm.
And Mick gets set up as, I mean, technically you always have a choice, right? But she's in a very difficult situation where it feels like she doesn't have a choice, right?
Yeah, she's chosen that too, though, right? Yeah, she's like leaning into the whole like I need this car in order to have a place to like sleep so I can go to school and all this stuff, right? And I think that this is now we're getting to the territory of like no one should have to make these decisions, right? And so it kind of feels bad to judge her for them, but like she does choose them. Basically, my feeling is if this went before a court, which it doesn't, she would probably get less of a sentence than someone else does, but she wouldn't get off scot-free, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I definitely think for the purposes of an audience, we are supposed to feel bad and excuse her actions because it feels like she doesn't have a choice, right? Like, or, I mean, again, they don't get into the implications of it, but she has been abused her entire life, right? So she's used to dealing with situations on her own. And so I can understand her wanting a car, even though she needs Nico's help to do it. She wants it so that it's hers, right? So that it's something she can do on her own. So her process makes sense. Her feeling like she doesn't have a choice but to do this makes sense. And so far, nobody's died. Lily was maybe an accident, but then once somebody actually like is murdered, she's like, yeah, no, I can't do this no matter what, right? So it's like she understands the choice she has, but she it takes her a minute to get there, I guess. But
yeah.
We as the audience are obviously supposed to be like, okay, but she feels bad, so we can forgive her for setting a forest on fire, you know?
Yeah, it's just something about it doesn't feel good or right. Again, like that's why I felt a little bit of type of way about the whole cop presence in this book, because why am I someone who generally does not feel this way? Like, so like, oh, like Mick should like face consequences for her actions. I mean, she in some ways will, but she just will get away with so much more than anyone else will because of what? I mean, like things that are not really her control either. Like, is it like because she's riding off of someone else's privilege in a way, right? She got lucky. Like, it's just, I don't know. It does like, why shouldn't she be in trouble? I guess I'm having trouble grappling with this because I guess in my core I really don't. I don't think she should be in these situations to begin with, and I think that's kind of not her fault, right? But it's I think what's making me feel complicated about it is I do feel like that is distinct from the choices she made. She shouldn't be in these situations where she has to make these choices. She still makes the wrong ones.
Yeah, and I wonder if like her wanting to be an EMT is also another way to kind of convince the audience that she's not in prison, but she's trying to make it up to the world, right? Like she's trying to repent for what she's done.
I mean, I don't hate that, frankly.
Yeah, so I think the book does try to make her as forgivable as possible.
And I do feel bad for her because, again, the book happens to her. And it's so much of it. Like, she does have choices there, but most of the rest of the time, it's like just everyone else doing whatever they want with Mick.
Yeah, and obviously we reach the end, and the Mick-Veronica relationship is, we're supposed to perceive it as, like, strong and probably lasting, but it started off of a lie, right? Like,
right.
It's not like they have a good foundation based on what Veronica did, right? So her trusting Nico over Veronica, considering the end of this book, it may seem crazy, but at the time, it seemed completely rational, to be honest.
Yeah. And we haven't gotten to the Nico discussion yet, but he's really like, you know, I give all this trouble to Mick, but it's obviously like he's the real problem here, right? The one who should really be in trouble for all this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Talking about Mick getting used, though, I think we discussed everything that can be discussed about it, to be honest, but I do think, considering the description of this book talked about this being inspired by The Picture of Dorian Gray, it feels necessary to at least talk about it a little bit. And me having only read 3 chapters of The Picture of Dorian Gray and then watching a YouTube video that talked about some of the themes of the book, I feel like I'm the best person to have this conversation.
Yeah, I've got no real contexts, unfortunately. Us on our book podcast, but yeah.
Yeah. I feel like most people that know classics probably know the basics of Dorian Gray. And I think this book being inspired by it, you can see how. We have the three main characters. Dorian Gray is obviously supposed to be Mick. You have Basil, the artist, which is Veronica, and then you have Lord Henry, which is supposed to be Nico, right? The only thing is, like, Nico is an artist in this. Lord Henry is not an artist in Dorian Gray. I don't really care how much this book is not like Dorian Gray, because it turns out it's not really like it at all, other than what I just mentioned. The important thing I kind of want to talk about is, and this isn't necessarily a gender discussion, but it could be, perhaps, the difference between a man as a muse versus a woman, or in this case, Dorian versus Mick, and how they get to kind of live their life and ruin their life. Dorian Gray is influenced by Lord Henry to kind of live a more hedonistic lifestyle, like pleasure for the sake of pleasure. That's sort of what Dorian Gray is about. But there's agency in that, right? Like, yes, he's influenced by somebody, but he's the one making the choices. He's the one seeking out those experiences. And he is the one that suffers the consequences. And he, hurts the other people around him as well. He ends up, spoilers. Can I give you spoilers?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. He ends up killing Basil towards the end of the book, which is what I thought was going to happen in this, right? I thought Mick was going to kill Veronica, especially when we had Veronica does get stabbed, doesn't she? Off the cliff, or no?
Is she? I'm not sure if she got stabbed as part of.
Oh, maybe she just fell off the cliff. But I thought that was going to involve Mick somehow, and like.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Mick was going to be the one to do that in some kind of rage and some kind of passion, influenced by Nico. Obviously, that did not occur, but it feels like Dorian is the muse. He's like very beautiful, but he's not forced into these situations he doesn't want to be in. And I think with the way Mick is perceived and treated as a muse in this book, she doesn't have a lot of choice. She doesn't even have her choice to be a muse, right? Like, to have her picture taken. Veronica just does it without her consent.
It's two flavors of cursed by beauty, right?
Yeah, and I wonder if that's like a bigger gender discussion of like, do people find women more interesting when they're just a pretty face and there's nothing going on in their head, right? Like,
right.
The way Mick is written about as being haunting, right? Like, do we appreciate women more when they're beautiful, but when they're traumatized? I don't think the book is necessarily going there, or if it is, I don't think it explores it enough.
Right. More of an example or a case study in that potential direction, but not the point it's trying to make.
Yeah, and it could be like an interesting way to, if you are reimagining Dorian Gray, how would it differ because you have a female main character? It's like, well, maybe like this, right?
Yeah. This is making me think too, as far as like what might be sort of the difference it's going for with Dorian Gray, like as far as if it's not paralleling the killing part, right? As far as like Veronica doesn't, or Mick doesn't kill Veronica, like this, there's a potential like point being made here of like, oh, like if this were to happen to women, they wouldn't resort to violence or something, But I do think if that's the direction it was going, it kind of misses the opportunity a little bit too of there being more conflict resolution between Mick and Veronica, like some of the things we were complaining about earlier of Veronica not totally like understanding or maybe understanding what she did wrong, but not changing behavior so much. Like, I think if the angle was supposed to be that maybe like it doesn't end up that way because they have more of a positive relationship and they understand each other more, then I would have liked to see more of them understanding each other more.
Yeah, that's why I feel like the ending sort of fell flat, because it was another instance of things just feeling kind of brushed aside because Mick didn't have to sort of take responsibility for what she'd done in the same way Dorian sort of had to, because he made those active choices. But that's why I sort of got to the end of the book not necessarily wishing it was the same as Dorian Gray, but I did want it to be darker. I guess this book entirely, like, it brings up some pretty heavy topics, like the obsession, and
Yeah.
even just the obsession on its own. It doesn't feel like Nico is just so cartoonish, I guess,
Mm,
that I kind of wanted something grittier in regards to like some of the themes we were setting up at the beginning of the book. Because even Veronica herself is obsessive about Mick, right? Like her
right.
spending hours developing photos over and over again. And not necessarily that an obsessive artist is a bad artist, because Basil also gets into a similar state and he's not a bad person, right? But we've kind of set Veronica up to be a bad person at the beginning of this book. And so it's like, okay, if we're making everybody darker, then let's get dark. And then that just doesn't happen, really.
Mm.
We get an oddly, like, fairy tale happy ending, which just doesn't feel fitting.
Yeah.
For something that's even, like, touching Dorian Gray. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess it does have, there's the ambiguity in the ending that maybe contributes that, right? Like, the criminal is not, he's out there still, and potentially going to hurt more people as a result, right? So
I was surprised to see Nico being Lord Henry, because another thing about Lord Henry is, like, he influences all of these people, but he doesn't do it himself. And in this, Nico is so, like, there's a little bit of that, right? Like with the fire, like Nico sees it and he enjoys that, but it feels like Nico is so much more hands-on. And that's mostly because Mick is, for the most part, a character without much personality and without much drive or thought, right?
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, as we've mentioned multiple times, she's kind of being not forced to do all these things, but she's in a situation where we can excuse these things that she's doing because she's in a difficult position, right? Rather than her just doing it because she enjoys it or something like that.
Yeah, I think part of this too, though, is just that, like, a major difference, I guess, with Nico is that he is also a bit of a narcissist, right? And so, like, what he's doing with Mick is, like, in part, like, recruiting her, right? Like, making her one of him in a way. But I don't think he really could be hands off, because what he's looking for is to feel unique and special and, like, better than other people.
Yeah, and that does feel very Nico seeing people and the way he can manipulate them as art itself, right? Like, Mick herself is a clay to be molded.
Right. To me, like, this perspective is interesting. You know, he gets into this back and forth with Veronica, which you kind of named last time, of, like, Veronica's art is really kind of more on the traditional side, right? Like, she's going through the photo gala type, you know, sort of typical display of art type of route, whereas Nico's doing this, you know, kind of alternative stuff, right? And they kind of get into this thing of, like, Nico definitely showing that he feels like he's got the superior art as a result. Like, what he does is worth it because it's special and it's interesting. I would have said this last time too, but, like, I feel like my perspective is that Nico's art isn't always, maybe mostly even art. It's kind of just mastermind crime, right? Where it's like, you know, jigsaw types, like, of, you know, you know, it's all crime at the end of the day. We're just, like, adding extra steps to it to try to also send a message with it. But the message, I think he's kind of bad at it. Like, I think the message is kind of lost in that, like, you know, with some of his earlier installs, like, it claims to be coming from a sort of ecological place, and, like, then he starts a wildfire, and then, like, it's kind of weird to even call what he's wanting to do with the Steel Cast part of the same series, because what does that have to do with the congressman and the environment and, like, I don't know, political and government systems, like, kind of the other things that he cares about when he's doing this? It doesn't do any of those things. And so it's just like, oh no, like, it kind of then just leads to, it's like, oh, he's just a psychopath and all he's doing is crime. He's actually not doing art at all.
Yeah, and yeah, we definitely talked about this in the first part. I felt like, I think it was me anyway, one of us mentioned, like, the art angle of it feels like an excuse to do these things, right?
Yeah. It's like looking for validity.
Yeah, he's looking for validity. He's looking for prestige. The fact that he shares it on Tumblr, even if it's not, like, his face out there, like, people still know him, right? And probably appreciate his art, quote unquote. And he has his little like disciples, right? Like he's able to bring in David, he's able to bring in Lily, and he's able to bring in Veronica and get them to trust him while they basically assist him in committing crimes because he's declared that they are art.
Correct, right. But I think he does believe they're art, right? Like the way he talks about, the way he goes about that conversation with Veronica, like I do think he thinks like he's a genius for like in the art realm.
Yeah, it's kind of like a god complex a little bit, right? Like he wants to impact other people and like the earth in a way that's non-human.
Yeah, I think that's fair. One thing I did want to talk about in this art realm is that the book tries to, at least I'm taking that the book is trying to have a commentary on the objectification of women, and particularly in this case with Mick, a teenage girl. And like, I don't know how I feel about this. I guess like, I feel like this book is walking a thin line between like addressing that topic and normalizing it. I don't think it wants to normalize it though. Like I think I'm getting that. But like it's almost like it's more just like a presence in the book than like being directly addressed. Maybe that's not even fair because like Mick is obviously suffering for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But particularly when we get to like the gala and there's like kind of the sexualized photos, right? Like of them in the dark room that also are kind of taken, I don't know, I think non-consensually, right? And then like posted up non-consensually, like all this stuff where it's like, and then you see people like are crowded around those photos, right? And it's disturbing, and I think it's meant to be, but it just doesn't like tackle it enough also. I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the first photo shared of Mick is right after she got kissed, right? So all of it is sexualized from the very beginning. And yeah, we have Veronica kind of tap into it a little bit. She's like, am I like those creepy guys that want to take photos of women? We almost get there.
At the least she delivered photos such that in a way that there's definitely creepy guys looking at them, right? And like just never like realizing like, oh, like yeah, like I did break lines of consent and put her out there. Like I think there's just a missing like final point on the like, yes, like I contributed to the sexualization of my partner in the public eye. Maybe even if she got to the point of like they're minors, but at the very least of just saying like she didn't want this and I put it out there. Maybe if that part were there, then it would feel like the book was tackling something a little bit more in this realm of objectification.
Yeah, and we talked the first part about like social media and sort of once you share a picture, it like stops belonging to you, right? And so obviously this is what happened with Mick. Anybody can see that first portrait of her, and I didn't realize at the gala that they were selling the portraits.
Yeah, they're like auctioning them, right?
They were auctioning them, yeah. So I was like, yeah, so people are gonna own these things, which I think is even worse for Mick because like that's what she's afraid of, right?
Right. I think the book is self-aware on this too. This is why I'm like, I think the book was trying to communicate something. It just didn't get there. You know, we get the scene of her in the hospital. You know, she had taken her shirt off to make a bandage for Veronica, and she like asked for a shirt, and no one gets her a shirt. And then it takes the cop coming in and be like, there is a teenage girl wearing only a bra in the middle of this room. Someone get her an effing shirt, you know? Like, so to me, it's like, okay, that's the book proving that we're self-aware on this concern, right? It just, I think it doesn't get complimented elsewhere.
Yeah.
I've swerved us left and right in this conversation between Nico and Veronica and the cop, it seems. So allow me to apologize before I go back to Nico next, because we have a little bit more to say about him. One thing that I'm left with for Nico, you know, at the end of the book, we lose all sense of truth for him. We don't know his name. We don't know where he is. And it sounds like he's going to run off to New York and probably terrorize over there, you know? There was this kind of concern last episode about like two poor characters and like sort of the messaging around them. But I think I've got a bit of a different idea around Nico now, given that we don't know his background for real. I kind of wonder if he actually has this like broken home, like foster kid story, in part because I don't trust him now, right? There's no reason to trust him. And like, if I'm getting granular about it, like how did he show up to Veronica's school with the name Nico if he was a ward of the state? Like, I don't think that's possible. I think he would have to have been playing some weird games behind the scenes to show up to school to begin with. But like, I'm almost tempted to believe he was like a runaway or like just I don't know, just doing weird stuff. He is kind of that mastermind type. Like, I can imagine he's doing some crazy things or like in touch with people who have power to do some crazy things, to like get him enrolled in school if that's, and he, if he was a runaway, it was like, I'm going to go like keep going to school. I would, I don't know, this is really getting a bit crackpotty, but I do kind of believe it. Like, I think maybe he actually came from a rich family, and just like because he is a psychopath kid, right, like was like very different, and so he just like took a sum of money that maybe he already had in his name, ran off to live in this kind of warehouse space, enrolled himself in school for a semester, decided that's not the path he wanted to go down, and so he just like leaned fully into art. And the way he's like able to fund fireworks and vans and steel and everything else is because he's got like effectively a trust fund package, though he's under 18, so it wouldn't be a trust fund. And he's just like using that to fund everything, and like using this story to like get in with people like Veronica, where he can be a little more like of an empathetic person, right?
It's definitely like tinfoil hat idea going on here. And that is a good point, though, about how he's able to afford certain things, right? Because Mick, I think, makes the point of like they have this refrigerator van that like florists use, which is very strange. Like, how did they get that? And it's sort of just brushed
they certainly
aside.
could have stolen things too, right? They're definitely no strangers of crime, so that could be part of it. But I'm just thinking about even like, there's like, he lives in this illegal tenement, right? I think that's fully by choice because he gets access to all of this space, of which he's probably paying for too.
Yeah. I also felt that way. It was for the space more so than the accommodations. And the way he was sort of able to clean it out so efficiently and move on.
Yeah.
Like, that could speak to having done that before, right?
Yeah.
The school aspect, they were in different grades. So I wonder, I don't remember how they knew each other, right? Like, did they just start talking randomly in school?
I do forget what it was that got the cross-year connection going.
Yeah, because if they were just randomly, like, started talking, there's a possibility that Nico didn't even go to that school.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I mean, he could have just walked in,
yeah,
been assumed to be a student, and then went about his day.
That's like so true. Like, there didn't even have to be that much like behind the scenes stuff to make this happen.
Right.
But like, why would he do that? Well, maybe he was looking for someone like Veronica, right? Because like one of the theories I have is that if Mick never showed up, Veronica would have been the one in the steel mold.
I mean, yeah, she got the chicken first, right? So
Yep. And she was fully replaced, right? He stopped asking Veronica to show up to things, and now like having Mick take photos and engage in all that stuff. I think that was the path Veronica was supposed to go down.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Anyway, I believe it more now. I know it sounds tinfoily, but truly I'm just like, this makes more sense to me. I don't think the book like ended up going too bad of the direction I thought it was going to go for like, there's two different types of poor kid or whatever, like just because the whole thing gets shaken up. But yeah, I don't know, like this, he has to be able to get all of this power somehow. And I just think that an easier explanation at the least is that he's got money. He could have done it via other crime and sort of, working with other people. But I think he just, we don't know. We just don't know. And so it gives me space to think that that's the background he actually came from. And I don't know, just like the privileged difference in a way, right? And like, excuse me for what I'm about to say, but like privileged behavior is often very different, right? And like, I could just see this being a case of like, maybe psychopath isn't the right word, but he was just kind of enabled to do wild shit as a kid, if he was like babied or like unsupervised by rich parents, so given a lot of things but not given a lot of consequences, right? So
yeah, I mean, yeah, this could tap into sort of what Dorian Gray starts to go through of like when you're seeking pleasure for pleasure, or Nico's case, like artistic fulfillment, if we want to still consider him an artist, like you can only hit that so many times before you start to need more, right? Before you start to need something more intense, bigger, like more impactful, a forest fire, big crimes like he's committing, right? So in a similar way, he might be like chasing those highs because he had everything, to your point, and so everything else is sort of just boring to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a crazy theory, I'll be honest.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I guess speaking on theories, to sort of wrap things up, we can revisit some of the ones we had last episode that did or did not pan out. I actually think, I don't know, did any of them pan out? Maybe not. Well, other than Nico himself.
Yeah, I was going to say, big theory was Nico.
I think that was a little bit given, unfortunately.
Obvious,
I would like to take more credit than we can get for that, but I mentioned something about whether Nico was the one who was supposed to do the gala and then space was made for Veronica. This was discussed by the book directly, but never confirmed. So I think the implication is maybe that was right. Like that Nico found a way to become what would you call it? A member? I don't know. Was supposed to do the gala, and that was going to be the way he got in to do the stuff that he was trying to do. And then once he, I don't know, realized he could do it without that, or that he could put Veronica in there, then he dropped it.
Yeah, I think it's certainly implied. I think Veronica starts to think that way as well. Because, yeah, somebody dropping out, and I think somebody suggests Veronica or shares the post with Postmod, and so everything feels a little bit too convenient for Veronica, right? Yeah. And so she starts to consider it, but yeah, no conclusion is really made about it. Which, yeah, we had talked about in the first part. We definitely did know Nico was going to do something at the gala, though. That was pretty clear. I didn't expect it to happen, like, so soon.
Yeah, it's, like, immediate.
Yeah, but whatever.
Yeah. What else? Yeah, Nico is definitely the person in the first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And we made some theories about Angel, the lifeguard. Never mentioned again, so no idea if, yeah, there was recompense for that. And then no mention of the fathers of the characters either. We talked about the potential for them to be getting involved with this story. No idea where they are.
Yeah. Honestly, Mick's job as a lifeguard is not mentioned again. It feels like she disassociates from her actual life.
Yeah.
And yeah, we never see, I mean, we see kind of her tackling the grief she feels about the boy that drowned. But even that, she blames herself when she shouldn't, but it feels like the book gives her an out for that too, right? Because it has Nico come in and say, actually, I'm the reason the boy drowned. Which I don't think makes sense, but sure, we'll give it to you. But it basically allows us to, like, consolidate all of the evil that's happened into, like, one specific person rather than, I don't know, being multifaceted, I guess.
Right, because, yeah, whether or not Nico is the one who told that kid to jump in the deep end when he can't swim, like, they still fucked up, right? Angel still screwed up.
Yeah, which having Angel come around, having him be angry at Mick for... if he did losing his job, like, that could have been an interesting conflict to have. Mm-hmm. It could have even been a red herring if we knew somebody was stalking Mick, or, you know, if something was happening in the background that were putting Veronica and Mick on edge. Like, Angel could have been a suspect, right? Like, but yeah, we just, we never see that place again. Mick never has to go back to work, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then the dad, yeah, we don't really talk to the mom, but, like, Mick doesn't really talk to her mom again. Other people talk to Mick's mom for her, right, which kind of pissed me off a little bit. Yeah. And then, yeah, we never find out about Mick's father or anything like that.
And, like, they don't, you know, he doesn't come out of the woodwork with the photo or anything either.
Yeah. Basically, this book is very cut and dry. Yeah. A leads to B.
Yes.
There's nothing really interesting happening in the background.
Yeah, maybe not in the background. I would say Nico going as off the rails as he is the thing.
And even that, I don't know if it moved me. If, you know, it was okay. I guess because it was so anticipated. Mm-hmm. I just, like, I didn't care by the end of the book.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely anticipated it was him. I just don't know if I understood just how wild he was going to be, you know? But I knew he was going to be wild, right? Because, again, Arson had already happened. That was stage 2 or 3 or whatever. So I knew it was going to be wild. I just didn't know to what degree.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think we did it.
I think we rambled a lot.
Yeah.
I think we did it.
I rambled a lot. So. But we did it, yes. Shall we do reviews?
Yeah. Do you want to go first or no?
I'll go first, yeah. I don't really have much more to say, frankly. You know, this is a review podcast after all. So I do think I said a lot of it already. Just... I don't know, complicated feelings, but I do think I liked the action of reading it, right? Like from a writing style, especially the second half. First half, maybe not. The second half, I was like, all right, I'm into this. I'm like, well, I want to know what happens next. I read it in pretty big chunks compared to what I usually do. So I think I liked the drive of the book, but I think the fact that it falls short on things like addressing objectification, and there was some room for expansion that was missed out, and Nico was a bit predictable. I don't know. I think that I'm having a hard time seeing this book as a positive. And I really did not, I have to be honest, did not enjoy reading the first half of the book because I found the characters a bit hard to get behind. And that maintained for a great deal of the book, frankly. So, setting certain characters as protagonists and other ones as villains, they're all kind of villains to me in some way, Anyway, so I think there's some things in this book that just don't work for me. I have decided I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5.
Okay. I don't know if we've ever had such opposing views in a review.
Oh?
Because I'm going to take everything you just said and reverse it, basically. I thought the second half of the book was the worst part of the book, if we're comparing the first and the second. I think the first half was the more interesting because more of the characters were toxic. I think Veronica being obsessed, it should have been more, right? Like, if you're going to take the artist character, I get in the original, let's just ignore that this is inspired by Dorian Gray, because it's not. It's just marketed that way. But Veronica being obsessed and crossing boundaries she shouldn't, and kind of the relationship between Veronica and Mick being toxic, I think it should have stayed toxic, right? I think this book should have went darker than it did in regards to art, for your point about sexualizing and just like taking agency and autonomy away from somebody, and like sort of the victimhood of the muse. Like, these are all interesting things that could have really been center stage of this book. I think instead it sort of does become loud, it becomes exciting. The art installations are like eye-catching, right? It very much becomes a thriller in the second half, but I find it to be less insightful and less moving than what it could have been, I suppose.
Yeah, I get that.
But you mentioned at the very start of this, I'm a character-driven person when I'm reading a book, so none of this is a surprise to anybody, really. I wish Mick had more agency. I wish if she was going to do bad things, she did it because she wanted to do it. And that is falling a little bit into the Dorian Gray of it all. But yeah, I just wanted something darker, I suppose.
Yeah, I almost feel like it falls in the middle of like, you can either have like a story where characters are like this and kind of learn and grow from them, or you kind of have the book be about their folly, right? Mm-hmm. And then you as the reader can kind of acknowledge the folly and take away your own observations. And I think because it's kind of in between those, like it doesn't really have that full growth moment, and it is also like just there's flawed characters from beginning to end. Like, I don't know, you don't get either of them really, and so it doesn't. I don't think it feels like it finishes.
Mm-hmm. And so for that, I think I'll go with a 2. Just a solid 2. So close to you, a little bit below. Yeah. It was okay.
Yeah, I have to say too, like, I only really go down in the 2 range when things start feeling like maybe the messaging is bad, and like that's why like it took the risk of having a book be about, I don't know, like of having critical analysis of things that I think are important, and just because I think you can have readings of this book where you take away the wrong message, or at least don't take away the right setting for reflection on it. I like that kind of vibe. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but like, because I think it's hard to like pull from this what they're trying to do. Like, that's why I can't get it up to a 3.
Yeah, and I feel like it is important to note there is always that scale of enlightenment and entertainment in regards to a book. And not all books need to be enlightening, right? Like, the messaging doesn't necessarily have to matter if, the book is fun. And like, I think definitely people will find this book fun.
Yeah, but I can't help but feel like it wants to be there, the messaging.
Yeah, it does feel like, even if it wasn't intentional, which I don't believe, but like, even if it wasn't, this book is definitely trying to say something, right? The way most art is trying to say something. But yeah, to your point, none of it ever really gets there. And so like, It feels flashy, but sometimes it lacks a little bit of substance.
Yeah.
But yeah, depressing end.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Ugh.
We're going to do a Rosebud Thorn to close this one out. So for the rose, something positive about the book or characters. I think I kind of said this a little in the review, but I really do think like the thriller portion did work for me. I'm not really like an actiony guy, so I don't know why this is the case, but like I think I really just was like, man, like what is going to happen next? Like we've got this kind of loose cannon character, so I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. Unfortunate that it means that like Nico is what was driving me in the second half of the book, but I was really like curious what direction it was going to go and whether or not the book would be like tragic, right? So I thought that was fun. I had a good time with that. I do feel like we've done lots of Thorns, so I feel bad adding another one, frankly. I'll make the Thorn that I don't like, that I feel weird about the cop character.
Okay.
I wish there were other good characters in the book, is what I'll say. Other clearly good characters.
Yeah.
For a bud, so something I would like to see for the characters in the future is I would like Nico to get arrested before he hurts anyone else.
Okay.
That's the main thing. My secondary one is like I am upset that Mick doesn't really get concrete consequences, and so I'm kind of hoping that like in her life she doesn't necessarily spend the rest of her life feeling guilty, but that she does find like the push to do better and like I don't know, just like think about those things that she did. And you know, I really don't want to see her go to jail or something like that, unlike Nico, right, where I kind of do want to see that. But just that she carries with her like a that greater mission that she's talking about with being a paramedic, EMT, whatever, and that becomes like a thing she cares about, and it's like a positive driver for her, but like yeah, comes from like I really do have something to make up.
That's fair. For my rose, I think one scene I really liked was when Nico got Mick the portrait of herself and basically like gave her the lighter so that she could destroy it, and then Mick does like tear it apart and burn it. I think some of the themes hit on like in that of like seeing this different version of yourself, a more innocent version of yourself who's always going to be that, right? And the ways that you've changed and done things you regret. I think that is very compelling. And even though some of that arc doesn't feel completed, I think the EMT route she wants to go towards, which we talked about before, you just mentioned in your bud, I do think that is supposed to be a showing of her wanting to be a better person. So it's like she doesn't want to revert to who she used to be. That's not possible. That person is gone. It's destroyed, which is shown in that scene. But there is like a coming to terms with the bad thing she's done and then wanting to be better. So like I feel like that is a complete part of her arc. Not necessarily spelled out, but I feel like the author does a good job with that in particular. I guess my thorn is really that it's not even necessarily something that happened. Actually, no, I can phrase this as something that did happen. To the surprise of everyone. I typically like a happy ending, even if it is a bit unrealistic. But I think in this story in particular, I did want it to be a tragedy. And I did kind of want Mick to kill Veronica. Or at least seriously harm her in a way that their relationship could not survive, right?
Right.
I sort of just wanted there to be consequences.
Exactly. I was going to say
spiral.
There's just no consequences. Yeah.
Yeah, for the spiral that Mick ends up going on, whether she's influenced by Nico or not, right? Like, something should have happened because of that. So yeah, the ending I guess was just a little bit too light, too fluffy, considering everything that had just happened. So that can be my thorn, I suppose. And then my bud, I don't know. I feel like you set a bud for everything you could possibly set a bud for.
I stole some stuff for sure.
Is there any bud I could possibly give to Veronica in regards to what she does with her life? I don't know if I care enough about her.
Other than I hope she learns.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I hope... I'm going to bring up Dorian Gray again. This part I did actually read myself. There's a conversation that happens between Lord Henry and Basil before they end up meeting Dorian, before Henry ends up meeting Dorian. And Basil talks about how basically infatuated he is with Dorian and like how much of a muse he is, without using the word muse. But there's a specific landscape he brings up, and he says, I painted this landscape and I was offered a lot of money for it, but I can't possibly sell it because, oh gosh, now I'm like, am I remembering this correctly? But I'm pretty sure I am. Dorian was with me when I painted it. And so like sort of Basil's feelings and like Dorian being there and like all of that is sort of in that painting as well, right? All of that like affection and inspiration, it bleeds into something like that, which is what a muse is supposed to do, right? And so I feel like my hope for Veronica is something we mentioned, but I'll bring up again, that she takes photos of the world without Mick being in them, but they still have Mick in them as a muse, right? Like the love they have together, the feelings that Veronica has for Mick bleed into her art in a way that still makes them captivating, even if only for them, but still is a piece of it without being integral to the art itself.
That's very wholesome.
Oh, thanks. And then I believe that's that.
Well, for our next book, we are going to be reading Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir up to, but not including chapter 14. And I have to acknowledge that this will be the last book we do on this podcast. We, and I say we, but I'm a bit of a driver here, have decided that I would like to, and we would like to as well, but I would like to work on some new projects coming up. So looking to sort of change what I'm working on, and that means that we're going to lay the podcast to rest for now, at least. And I think we both have ideas of maybe coming back and doing things together in the future that could still be book related or not book related, but coming back around to do some projects together in the future. But for now, we're going to lay this one to rest, and we're hoping that Project Hail Mary will be a good place for us to land, putting our hopes that it's one that we're both going to enjoy. But even if we don't, of course, we'll do what we always do and have a good time talking about it either way.
Yeah, I mean, indefinite hiatus.
Yeah.
Who knows what the future will bring.
Exactly.
But yeah, we've been doing this a long time. I've been editing a lot of episodes. I could definitely use some evenings back to myself, TBH.
Taylor puts crazy hours into this to make it happen every 2 to 3 weeks. So,
and we've been consistent, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think except for like one Thanksgiving episode that was probably off.
But yeah, we've been without hiatus the entire time. So yeah, we've pushed through and we've had a good time doing it.
Yeah, and I for certain wanted to end on this book mostly because I really want to read it. Obviously, the movie just came out. And a lot of people are talking about it, or we're talking about it. We're a bit behind, but, you know, what can you do? There's the obvious stuff of this being a science fiction. And I've seen images of Ryland Grace as, who's he played as right now? Ryan Gosling?
Ryan Gosling, yep.
Ryan Gosling. So I've seen art of Ryan Gosling and a Rocky character, whoever the fuck that is.
Okay.
So it seems like we might get some alien species, but at least for this, Ryland, it seems like he's alone. He's very far from Earth. He needs to do something to save them, himself. Something. There's an issue. Project Hail Mary. You know, Hail Mary, as you would say.
Sounds good. Well, is Andy Weir also the author of The Martian?
Yes, same guy.
Okay, it's giving vibes, so that makes sense. All right, cool. I'm excited.
Hopefully we like it, because it's the last book we're ever going to read in our entire lives.
All right.
So, yeah. And as always, if there are any thoughts or theories about She's Too Pretty to Burn, especially if you want to correct me about any of the nonsense I spoke about, please do. Or if there's anything to say about Project Hail Mary that aren't spoilers before we get there, I guess. Could you imagine our very last episode and somebody spoils the whole thing?
That'd be
Never
crazy.
happened before, but yeah. But yeah, all the socials are in the description.
And please give us 5 stars, a like, or subscribe on whatever podcast app you use to listen to us. And thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.